Let's talk a little bit about the process. When you bring a new client on after you've secured that business, what do you do to ensure that the creative is not only unique and eye-catching but effective as well? Do you go through a series of steps, or what kind of process do you start with, Kelly?
Well, I would say my process is really simple. Maybe it sounds simplistic, but I think connecting to your previous question, what is inspiring? The most inspiring thing to me is other people, and the connections that happen when you talk to somebody, and especially talk to somebody about something that they love. When you are talking to a client from a marketing perspective, when you're talking to a client and saying, ask them about the business and if it's the owner, they built that business from the ground, or they took it over, and that's what they live and breathe. So I think that talking to them and asking them questions, not just asking them questions, but asking the right questions, I would say is where I start. And you go from there. Because they'll give you they'll give you information and ideas that you wouldn't have been able to think of on your own.
And we talk about that internally, about you can't start with the creative. You have to start with knowing your problem or your need or your client and go from there. Maybe there's a tendency to start with let me start with this great idea, and it may not apply. It may be wrong audience, wrong solution, whatever. So anybody else on that one?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, when a client comes on, and I want to hear what ideas they have first, and then I can kind of bring on my own ideas and kind of mesh in some type of concept or creative plan of what we're going to execute. So like you're saying, you can't really come into it with a creative plan because it might not work with what their ideas were originally. So you kind of get their ideas, take your ideas, and I end up going back and doing my own research, pulling like inspiration from photos or videos from Vimeo or YouTube, and typing in keywords. So if it's product food photography, I might search food photography and just kind of pick out images that pull my attention, and then creatively come up with a concept that I'm going to shoot it with.
For the most part, you three are working alone, but Joe, you've got Nick on your side as well. Any other folks in your office?
There are two other people.
Okay. How does that work? Is there
we have a process when we get a new client that there's no better information than to get it from the people you're working for. They know their business. They can give you insight that you just don't know about. So we have a process where we sit down with the client, maybe we sit down with some of their constituents, and just get feedback from them. And that sometimes they might say some words, they might say some phrases that we'll use for headlines or for taglines, but that is where the best information's at. And you brought up the point of the constituents, so that's the end user, that's the information. Yeah. So I think that's an important component of, is this going to work, is it going to be effective, is talking with that end audience. That's great. Yeah.